Especial Sting. Hello. Since the breakup of the Police 12 years ago, its lead singer and bass guitarist Sting has developed into one of pop's most thoughtful and literate songwriters, adopting an eclectic range of styles from Latin American music to jazz, while remaining one of the best-selling artists in the world. At the same time, Sting has also attracted controversy. He's used his celebrity to aid political causes and has often been accused of intellectual arrogance for stepping outside the pop arena. Christopher Walker's film was made at Sting's Jacobean home in Wiltshire, where he was recording his 6th solo album.
Between heaven and hell, just let your soul be your pilot. Let your soul guide you, guide you where. I always had the idea that I would love to make my living as a musician. I would love to be a musician. That was my only ambition, and still is my only ambition, to make my living out of playing music. I have no one particular music form that I want to sell or dig deep in. I like to be a gadfly, you know, I like to roam around.
Do you work on the basis that you can say what you like in a pop song as if you're writing short stories or plays or even novels, whatever it is?
It's really the opposite. You know, you take big ideas and you condense them into rhyming couplets, you know, whereas novels seem to be, you take small ideas and make them into a big narrative. You have to be sparse with words. You have to write a story in very few words, and I think it's a great art form.
Do you find it was difficult for others to accept that you could put rather complex messages and rather abstruse references into rock and pop songs?
If the idea comes, I'm not constricted by the idea, you can't do that in a pop song. I'm really not. You can't put that word in a pop song. You can't put that meter in a pop song. Or I don't care about those rules. I really don't. Mm. But I'm privileged, you know. I'm in a position where I can do that. You know, I've made enough money to have that freedom. People will listen to my records with more, I think they'll give me enough rope to hang myself, basically. I was never in the school choir because I considered singing to be something that was a bit sissy. And yet, you know, when the school sang, I had this very sweet voice. I looked up at the stars to try and find an answer in my life. I chose a star for me. I chose a star for him. Chose 2 stars for my kids and 1 star for my wife. Something made me smile. Something seemed to ease the pain. Something about the universe and how it's all connected. That's it. The first hit record I ever performed on was a song called Roxanne. Roxanne.
What was it you think that made the Police click?
I think we were a 3-piece group, and that has an inbuilt limitation. You're just 3 people. You can't really compete with a larger band that has keyboards and, you know, horn sections and lots of singers. And we started to leave lots of space in the music, lots of holes, because we couldn't fill it. But we made a point of that, and I think that spare kind of skeletal approach made any record we made stick out.
The Police was radically different. The great space created just by 3 instruments was added to by Andy's, you know, that shimmering sort of echoey guitar. And then what's particularly great about Stuart's playing was all the stuff on the hi-hats. Really clever. It just now you listen to it a lot in dance music, but it just trips the whole thing along, like keeps you going like that. Though the bass is holding a melodic pattern, which is reggae jazz influenced. And then this voice, this fantastic voice, and there weren't great voices at that period.
You know my mind is made up, so put away your makeup, yeah. Told you once, I won't tell you again. I won't share you with another boy. Roxanne, you don't have to put on the red light. Roxanne, you don't have to put on the red light. Come on, Roxanne.
Our timing was very good when we came to the States. The American media and the American audience were aware that there was something called punk happening in England. We had this great song, Roxanne, We were all pretty articulate. We were able to give very good interviews and talk about punk and new wave music, and then we had the performance to back it up.
Punk happened, the Sex Pistols and the Clash, and they seemed to be knocking the doors in, so that was, we flew the flag of punk to get in through the door, and then we became ourselves.
White reggae was a phrase used about the early songs, wasn't it, really?
I mean, reggae was a type of music that appealed to me as a musician, not about energy, but as a bass player particularly. I was fascinated by Bob Marley and his voice and his songwriting abilities, and ended up emulating them because reggae was sort of musical end of the punk thing.
No, woman, woman, you see, I remember.
Reggae's hard. When we were listening to Catch a Fire, the Marley album, it took us ages to just pull back and just relax into this thing, you know. And that's a huge process. They could do it. I mean, he's such a good bass player.
All dressed up and nowhere to go, no. Welcome to this free man show. But just take a seat, they're always free. No surprise, no mystery. In this desert that I call my soul, I always play the stuff with roll. Slowly, 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 slowly,
I always sort of avoided the cliche of like a rock star buying a big house in the country because I'm a city boy, you know. I was brought up in Newcastle and I've lived in London for the past 20 years, but I decided that I would try it, buy a house in the country and see what it was like, and I love it.
What do you think you got out of your background, just simply in terms of your career?
I didn't really appreciate it at the time. I tended to live in a sort of monochrome world, you know, sort of grey streets and grey skies, and was attracted by the cinema, by Technicolor, you know. I thought, well, that's real life. And but looking
Or
back,
better, it isn't real life.
well, it's not real life at all. It was more
much better.
attractive. It was more, I come out of the pictures and go, God, I'm back. But looking back on it, being born next to a river and a shipyard and the remnants of heavy industry, actually was a fascinating and a very stimulating background. But I thought it was just somewhere to escape from. I always think about a symbol for my life being the shipyard I lived next to, of these giant ships they would build, which would be built for, 18 months, and then they'd launch them into the river and then out to sea, never to come back. I always thought that was an image for my life, I'm building myself up here, then I'm going to get launched and I'm going to be out into the world, My father was an engineer, an engineer's fitter, and he worked in the yards. My grandfather was a shipwright. There was this tradition of work. I never aspired to this. I wanted to read books.
What made you want to be a school teacher?
Basically, the holidays seemed and the hours seemed, when I was a teacher, when I was a student teacher, I was a musician. I was playing every night in clubs and pubs. And so I needed a job that wasn't too physically taxing. And that's what I thought teaching was an easy job, and I realized very quickly it wasn't. But the hours were good. I was playing every night, turning up for school the next day. And
what was hard about it?
It was the first experience, really, of performing in public. Standing up in front of a class and actually performing. I mean, what I learned was that there's no such thing as teaching. What happens in a classroom is learning, and you're basically there to encourage that that phenomena. And I found the best way to do that was to entertain the children. Whether they learned anything, I do not know, but I definitely could entertain them. I developed a taste for jazz quite early and quite deliberately. And it's music I didn't really like at first. I mean, someone lent me Thelonious Monk's playing solo. And I sat there and listened to this stuff and knew it was going to do me good. I would eventually learn what was happening, and eventually I did. I think a taste in jazz music is something you have to learn. You can't just suddenly, it's not something you have naturally.
Since we started playing jazz tunes, we come in here every day and play a tune. I started writing out stuff. And play Keith Jarrett tunes and McCoy Tyner tunes. Sting is a musician first, you know. And instead of like a pop icon, I think he's a musician strongly. When we go on the road, we have to get a gig in a little smoky club, just me and him playing jazz tunes. So we're getting our repertoire together.
You upped stumps and came to London. Now that was a big move in anybody's life at that particular time. Wife, child on way, giving up teaching, coming to a place where you knew hardly anybody. What were you going to do?
It was at a band called Last Exit. We decided that we would go to London. And there's only me and the keyboard player who actually made it. And the other guy stayed at home. But once I was in London, I decided to stick it out, and I signed on the dole. And I was lucky. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. I met Stuart Copeland, and we formed the Police, and, you know, 18 months later we had a hit record, which is a miracle.
I don't think any of us ever consciously thought, what is there that hasn't been tried before? How about if we... I don't think any of us ever did that. And when we came together forming the sound of the group, we never really scratched our heads to look for something different or trying to be different. I think it was all completely instinctive.
I think they clearly knew what they were about, highly ambitious, highly competitive, very arrogant, which is very necessary. And an absolute, they were so sure of themselves. I remember that. I really remember that about, they were so sure of themselves. I don't know, but I remember Sting and thinking, he's a cocky bastard, you know.
We were all of us so committed to succeeding at that point that we just didn't question whether we would or not. And if anything had gone wrong, it would all have collapsed. But nothing did, it just kept getting better and better.
Just a castaway on island lost at sea. Another lonely day with no one here but me. More loneliness than any man could bear. Rescue me before I fall into despair. I'll send that SOS to the world. I'll send that SOS to the world. I hope that someone gets mine. I hope that someone gets mine. I hope that someone gets mine. Message in the bottle.
A few years later, it was several 100,000 people at concerts. It was 11 million records. Did that give you a sort of sense of vertigo? I mean, how do you cope with that?
Well, I did cope with it. I mean, I'm still alive. And I think it's partly a function of being 26. I wasn't 18. I wasn't 19. In that kind of success, at that age, it's very dangerous because it's usually, it passes very quickly, and then you reach the grand old age of 22, and what do you do? I'd at least developed as an adult before any of this happened, and still, I still fell foul of the traps, you know. I mean, I've led a pretty wild and profligate life, but I've survived it because it's been balanced, you know, by thought, by a certain amount of discipline.
I mean, did you feel threatened by the success at some stages? Because it,
Well, I mean,
it must be an overwhelming feeling of sort of power and just be knocked off your feet.
I know that the most successful period of my life was probably in the early 80s. It was also the most unhappy period of my life. I had gallons and gallons of money and success and adulation. And yet my life was crumbling around me. My marriage was falling apart. My personality was falling apart. My relationship with the other members of the band was falling apart. And this was the most successful time. We were absolutely, you know, coining it. And it's a terrible paradox, you know. This is what we've been working for years and years. Now we have it, and it means absolutely nothing. I actually said once that success was more important than relationships. I said that. I think I believed it. I don't anymore. I really don't.
I mean, it's full of fear, isn't it, I would guess? There's a lot of fear, though.
Yeah, you're frightened that it will end, even though you're not having such a great time after all. You don't want it to end. And, you know, all of the crutches are there waiting for you, you know, drugs and alcohol and women and everything else, you know. I'm glad to have lived that life. I'm glad to have survived it.
As the nurturing environment of the group began to dissolve, and a lot of the aggression began to rise, that it became more competitive, and other things other than the quality of the material began to raise their, you know, rear its ugly head.
Bands tend to be, you know, young men, a gang. And I found myself, the older I got, less and less willing to be a member of the gang, and the songs I wrote reflected it less and less.
You know, Stuart and I both wrote songs about as it went on. I thought I wrote some very good pop songs, but Sting wasn't really up for singing other people's material.
I found it a terrific strain to be wanting to write in a certain way, with a certain freedom, and yet having to deal with this group consciousness, you know? The best songs I've written are the most difficult to write, and they're the songs that, in a veiled way, will reveal something of myself that I would normally hide, normally try and mask. And I'm talking about vulnerability, fear, weakness. It's not something I project normally in a normal life. And yet it's part of my personality, obviously. And the best songs reveal that. And they're the most difficult to write. Technically, they're most difficult to write emotionally. But they're probably the songs I'm most proud of. I try and live a pretty routine life. When I wake up in the morning, my first duty, if you like, is to do yoga, a couple of hours a day. It started off as a sort of keep fit thing, and it's become something more substantial. I'm totally addicted to it now. I find it helps my mind as well as my body. And I can do things now with my body I couldn't do when I was 16, which is exciting, actually. Moving to the country was a major step for me. And now I'm perfectly happy just wandering around the woods all day. I spent a lot of my life totally ignorant of nature. I lived in a city, you see trees and flowers. And quite late in my life I came to realize how important they are to me. This is my hut by the river. I actually spend most of my days in here. It's very peaceful. I can look out the window, there's a river flowing. I'm quite happy living here. I don't need a big house. It's very funny. They bring me my meals down, and I sleep here. We have a song called I Was Brought to My Senses, and it's really about nature and seeing nature as a metaphor for human relationships, but also as a revelation in itself. I was born. All right.
I walk out this morning like a veil had been removed from before my eyes. The first time I saw the work of heaven and the line with a mountain being married to the sky. All around me, every blade of singing grass was calling out your name, that our love would always last. And inside every turning leaf is the pattern of an older tree. The shape of our future, the shape of all our history. And out of the confusion, where the river meets the sea, came things I've never seen, things I've never seen. I was brought to my senses. I was blind. Now that I can see every sign, post in nature said you belong to me. I know it's true.
I visited the Amazon 10 years ago. I was completely fascinated how beautiful it was, how amazing, how vast, and became very involved in trying to prevent its destruction. Got in a lot of trouble over that. We're asking President Sane to give us world leadership here, taking a step to save the environment.
Out of the confusion, where the river meets the sea, something new would arrive, something better would arrive. I was
What's your overall view of that now? What's your overall take on your involvement with that?
I mean, I'm glad that we got a result. I'm glad that we managed to physically, politically demarcate an area that's the size of Switzerland, actually. And that was our goal. That was what we set out to do, and it took 5 years of very hard work to do that. I'm very happy about that. What I'm not happy about is some people get the impression that that was some sort of self-serving idea, that I was doing it to further my own fame or my own career, and in fact, the opposite is true. My career took a dive because of that.
Why do you think it took a
I
dive?
don't know. I took a lot of flack for it. Again, that's just, human nature. I mean, your job is to focus attention on an issue in this as a celebrity. And when you focus attention, you have 50% of that attention is going to be negative. That's an equation you have to come to terms with. We did a tour years ago with Bruce Springsteen and Peter Gabriel for Amnesty. And we played in places like Argentina and Chile. And the local journalists would say, you know, how do you think your songs are going to affect General Pinochet, you know? Well, I said, probably not much. Probably never hear our songs. But his grandchildren will. They will rule the country one day. That's all we can do. We're singers, we're not politicians. Yeah, I've been called pretentious a lot. I get asked to represent ideas as a celebrity, you know, so you add your name to this or appear here. But I'm fairly selective about what I do now. Otherwise people think, oh, this thing on a soapbox again, you know, it's boring.
One day we'll dance on the blues. One day we'll sing our freedom. One day we'll laugh in our joy. And we'll die.
It's like the dumb blonde syndrome. Marilyn Monroe was not allowed to have brains, and that continues to this day. No blonde, pretty girl is allowed to have brains. Well, you can extrapolate that to a blonde, pretty pop star.
Rock stars and footballers are supposed to be idiot savants, you know. We're not supposed to have read Proust.
Sting's thing about the overt pursuit of the intellectual, you know, books, and being very influenced by those books, whether momentarily or whatever. He seems to digest what that thing has, take what he needs from it and spit the rest out, and then wrap it up in a song and move on.
He deals the cards as a meditation, and those he plays never suspect. He doesn't play.
It's very hard to write something that's entirely original. I would say it's virtually impossible. A lot of songs have the same chord structure, the same shape as a million other songs. Check.
Got chest pains.
No.
Is that the phone for me?
It's a Samaritan.
What?
The hidden law of a probable outcome. The numbers lead a dance.
That was a practice game.
Yeah, we need more of those. Whether or not you like my music, and it's not given. What comes through me is very much me, and it sounds like me and nobody else. Even though I'm using old established forms, you know, I'm using a major chord followed by a relative minor. It's been used 100 million times, and yet it's by doing it yourself, singing it, using your words, you produce something that is original.
Actually looks like Elvis.
Elvis? Yeah. I just heard that these guys play with Elvis Presley, you know, I'm a bit freaked out now. Southern gentleman, you two.
You sound Southern sometimes, Sting.
Really?
You say some things that sound just like you from Tennessee.
Never heard that before.
South London.
South London. I'll point it out to you. So you can work on it.
Those two guys played on all those records. They played on Soul Man. They played on Knock on Wood. They played on Hold On, I'm Coming. They played on Dock of the Bay. They played with Elvis Presley. You know, that's the sound you have in your head when you think of Stax, when you think of soul music.
I mean, our calling card is the 60s. That's where we went to college. We went to college at Stax Records. And our degree is Otis Redding and Sam and Dave and Wilson Pickett.
In rhythm and blues.
I just thought it was an authentic quote from that era. Say, okay, let's take this out of that historical era and see what happens. 1, 2. Hung My Head is in 9/8 time, and it's not a normal time signature for anyone. The Memphis Horns haven't played in it before, so it was quite difficult to get them to feel the rhythm. Yeah. The last one wasn't good. Yeah, I'll let you do them all again. You know, the G to the F is on the 8th and the 9th beat of the bar. So it's ba ba da ba da da.
Sting likes all these strange, well, we call them strange time signatures. We listened to a tape before we left while we were at home that had, it was in a 7/8 rhythm. Then we got over here, I was prepared for 7/8, and Sting says, all right, how about 9/8?
5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Early one morning, with time to kill, I borrowed Jim's rifle and sat on the hill. I saw a rider crossing the plain. I drew a bead on him to practice my aim. My brother's rifle went off in my hand. A shot rang out across the land. The horse he kept running, the rider was dead. I hung my head, I hung my head. I said,
To be a bass player and be a singer and be a band leader is a very happy accident. The band is top and bottom by me. I'm controlling the whole thing. And within that, the band can paint their own colors, but I'm very much dictating the harmony and the top line. Also, you control the dynamic. The drummer can flail away, but without the bass underpinning him or complementing him, it doesn't work.
here in the courthouse, the whole town is dead. I see the judge high up in his chair. Explain to the courtroom what went through your mind, and we'll ask the jury what verdict they find. Say, I felt the power of death over life. I orphaned his children, I widowed his wife. I begged their forgiveness, I wish I was dead. I hung my head, I hung my head, I hung my head, I hung my head.
I enjoy playing the bass. It's big and chunky, it's got big strings, and I love the sound of the bass. When I was a kid, to hear the bass better on records, I would play 45s at 78, and I'd play LPs, 33, I'd play them at 45. So the bass would come out and I'd hear the bass lines. I was fascinated by bass. Still am. I mean, they're pretty ugly, my hands. They're made for playing the bass or punching people. It's better to play the bass. foot in both rooms, if you like. One, I'm very much a popular artist with a popular appeal. On the other hand, I like this kind of weird stuff. So I'm trying to pull people from one room into another. I like selling a lot of records. I like being a popular artist, but I can't be a pop star all my life. I will move, and probably move away from a popular arena, and probably no one will hear it except the dog. I'm in my 40s now. My generation doesn't really listen to pop music that much. I don't know where it's going. I have grown up through pop music. Like most people of my generation, I can landmark my life with songs. You know, I know what I was doing when a certain song was in the charts. I've grown out of it. I don't do that anymore.
Thank you.
Sting, of all the bass players I've ever known in my life, you're one of them. Thank you. Is it true?
I can now landmark my life in my own work. I don't know where I was when I was making a certain album or writing a certain song.
Okay, everybody. After three. Three.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday.
Come on, louder than that.
Happy birthday to you.
Tell I'm the singer in this.
Go on, go on.
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you. I'd like to say a few words. I'm very fortunate tonight because it's my birthday and I have both of my families around this table. I have my lovely wife, I have 3 of my 6 children, I have my band, and I've reached the age of 44. I'm very healthy, I'm very happy. My sanity is reasonably intact, and I owe it to my family. So, love you all. God bless you. Thank you. 15 years ago, 10 years ago, everyone knew who was number 1. I have no idea who's number 1 at the moment, and I don't care. And most people in the country don't care either. It's sad, we seem to have lost one of the things that was very cohesive about our society, you know. It's just too disparate. And I think the same is true in television, you know. I think I've said this before, but every Wednesday night, the whole country watched the Wednesday play and discussed it the next week, or all next week, or they watched Armchair Theatre. Because we had, you know, basically one channel, and that was a very cohesive force. We've lost that. There are too many channels, there's too much pop music, there are too many choices, and so we don't have these artistic expressions which everybody can relate to or everybody can comment on, because nobody sees them.
And you see this is a loss. I mean, people could say, look, this is varied, this is
postmodern.
Well, it's multiple, it's varied, it's not as constrained. This was constricting.
Yeah, I preferred it. When I was in my 20s, I was very confident and very sure about what I was doing. And I really felt I had my finger on a pulse. I kept having #1 singles and stuff like that. I don't have that anymore. So I make music that I like. I'm running out of handshakes now. How you doing? Good to see you. Welcome. Thanks for coming. Yeah. See you.
Then let's go from and the distant sing stars station me now. Were we coming for that real long part? Okay. 1, 2, 3.
Let your pain be my sorrow.
ah. Ah. Beautiful. But don't forget to let your pain. What is it? What's the lyric on the second chorus?
Pain be my sorrow.
Yeah, be my sorrow, my. Let your. Just be the colored children that you are. Just be those black children. Just go on and serve it. Let your soul guide you along the way. Let your soul,
No.
let your soul,
Monica, we're ending up at the word soul just a fraction too early.
let your soul guide you along the way. Let your soul, let your soul,
Might open the can of worms there. Sometimes it's better to leave problems alone.
See, it doesn't matter if you're black or white. You can listen to soul music and then try and sing it, and you can mimic it. Or you can listen to it and get into it. Sting is the real soul singer when he wants to sing soul.
When there's no information and the coppers turn nowhere that you know where. Let your soul be your power. Let your soul guide you when the doctor.
Sting is a paradoxical person. What makes him more relaxed now is that he recognizes the paradoxes. He still does his hair, but will laugh about it. He still does his yoga. He still twats on about tantric sex, you know, and you know, stuff like that. I mean, but like now he sees the joke, you know.
Eyes turned towards the window. The lights upon the hill. The distance seems so strange to you now. The dark room seems so still. Let your pain be my sorrow. Let your tears, my tears fall. Let your courage be my motto. That the north you find will be true. When there's no information and the compass turn from nowhere that you know where. Let your soul be your pearl. Let your soul guide you. Let your soul guide you. Let your soul guide you. Let your soul guide you along the way.
I don't know, I think people have get a very sort of tabloid impression of someone's life. You know, if I look through the tabloids of reports of my life for the past 20 years, there's this mythological character which I don't actually recognize.
Who's that character that you don't recognize?
He's a guy who's called Sting, but he's not really me. He does things and has done things which I haven't done, you know. But
In that sense, do you think you've managed to guard an essential privacy, despite all that?
I think so. I think so. I mean, I don't mind what's said about me in the papers. I really don't. No. I don't care.